One of the local newspapers described the Labour group on the council as the best organised group in the borough. The reason we are that is because we have the best organised party on the ground, which is why there are so many of you here tonight, which is why we will make a difference for the people of Southend.
But we put out a manifesto from the entire Labour Party in Southend, because these are the policies that we are all signed up to. These are the policies that we are all committing to deliver.
Having seen the manifesto, these are the good things that we've done, and these are the things that we're planning to do.
It seemed perhaps fanciful to think that, one day I'd be stood here not only to talk about what the Labour Party in Southend would like to do, but actually being able to reflect on what we have done to make a real difference to people.
My colleagues were brave enough to say, when we came to administration, the officers said, "What's not on the table?" And we said, "You don't close children's centres, you don't close care homes, you make sure you build." We gave them the opportunity to be dynamic, to be creative, to do things in a different way. Not just our way, but the right way, a good way. And people across the political spectrum, people who are not political, are actually seeing that positive change.
Socialism is the language of priorities. That's what Labour brings to this cabinet, and I hope will continue to bring the council after May the 5th.
We've not only built the first council house in 20 or 30 years, there are more being built in Shoebury, and we are embarking on a major project to renew the Queensway estate, the biggest investment in social housing that the council will have seen for getting on for 30 years.
And we could hold up our manifesto and say, this is what we were elected on. These are the policies we want to see for Southend. And they formed the core of the administration's policies. Stuff like, protecting the libraries, building council houses, protecting the children's centres and the care homes. All those policies come from the Labour manifesto. So, we are obviously hoping we're still going to be in administration. We're hoping that the Labour group is going to be even bigger after the elections, and that even more of this will happen. Even more of the stuff that's in here will become things that we can boast about for the next election having done.
We've managed to not only continue but accelerate the programme of replacing the streetlights with LEDs, which is good for the town's finances and also good for the environment. In fact, we've got a very solid environmental record. We've massively increased the use of solar panels on public buildings like schools. We've introduced the strictest targets on recycling that have ever been done in the borough in terms of our new waste contract. This very building has will have a new biomass boiler. Now, these are all things that are not only actually make good financial sense, but are reducing the town's CO2 emissions. We're pushing ahead with a new digital strategy to attract, which is very important to attract jobs and investment. John McDONALD mentioned about socialism with an iPad. I'm going to deliver socialism with the highest connection speeds of any town in the country in Southend. It shows what an enabling public sector can actually do to set the right conditions for business and prosperity.
I can't talk about other politicians. I can only talk about me and what I've done. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to do things that actually improve people's lives, because if you don't, you've got nothing to say.
We're now beginning to really see the implications of the Tories' austerity cuts all around us in Essex. The police budgets have been cut, resulting in the closure of 60% of police front desks in our county, which are down from 25 to 10. And police community support officers reduced by 75% from 251 to 60.
The budget that we've just passed includes an extra £1 million of investment for roads and pavements, because we all know the state of some of the roads and pavements in Southend. We've got to make sure that that money is used wisely and fairly.
One of the things I'm really proud about in Southend is the way that we've addressed the really difficult and dangerous issues of safeguarding with children, child sexual exploitation, rape, domestic violence, etc. We are not taking any excuses from partner agencies. We are not going to accept that this is the way it is. We are going to be at the forefront of making meaningful change. We've got the smallest number of schools in special measures or causing concern or in requires improvement than ever has been in this town.
We've managed to save the council's remaining care homes, something that the Conservatives said couldn't be done.
I'm someone's daughter, I'm someone's sister, someone's mum. In the way that we all are, we all have our role to play in families and in society. And that voice is stronger when it comes together.
Health inequalities in the most deprived wards. People are living 9 years, dying 9 years earlier in Southend than other areas of the town. I mean, which this day and age, to me, is disgraceful, because if we don't stand up for them, the Tories are not going to. That's what this party is about, is standing up for the less advantaged in this town.
Where I'm standing pretty well, as has already been mentioned, the Tories would have closed Priory House care home if they hadn't lost power 2 years ago. Labour, as part of the joint administration, managed to save not only Priory House but also Delaware House in Shoebury.
But the classic is, of course, the housing crisis which we now face. It is the worst housing crisis that this town, South East England and London have seen in the entire post-war period since 1945.
Kursaal is disproportionately negatively impacted by a lot of the issues felt across the borough. So in terms of rates of unemployment, domestic abuse and insecure housing. Problems of insecure, unaffordable housing in our town, which is a reality for many of our residents. This is why I, as the Kursaal candidate and the local Labour Party as a whole, think building more social housing, improving the standards of private rental market and taking tough enforcement action on poor housing is so important. Equally, empty properties must be brought back into circulation to at least partially address the lack of housing. The central government cuts and lack of time in the curriculum means that personal, social, health education and sex and relationship education have been pushed further and further down the list of priorities, but it's essential that that work is done. And in economic terms, it is incredibly short-sighted to cut services which help young people deal with their mental health issues and to offer information and guidance around sex and relationships.
I hear a lot over this election. Southend Council has had its grant cut from central government, again by 8 million this year, and I believe by 2020 we will have nothing left, which is going to be a cut of around about 40 million annually before inflation is taken into account.
It's a failure of politics that gap between rich and poor in this town and in the country as a whole is widening all the time. It's widened tremendously in the last 10 years.
It's not the miners but the junior doctors that are now on strike, fighting the dismantling of our beloved National Health Service. And they're generally not fighting for better money, they're fighting because they care about the NHS and they care about the service they're giving to all of us. And the Tory government is bit by bit privatising the health service that the Labour government created.
There is a desperate shortage of housing to rent in this town, and many people, of course, just simply cannot afford now to get their foot on the first ladder of buying their own homes.
This manifesto shows that the local Labour Party understand the town's problems and have a clear strategic plan for addressing the big issues.
Show them that Labour has a plan for Southend.
It's also telling people that their vote actually counts in Southend, because I think too many people look around and just assume this is a Tory town.
People are starting to realise that the Labour Party can not only win, but they can be trusted when they win to deliver good governance, to take the town forward and to make fairer choices than the Conservatives ever could.
You come out and vote, you get Labour councillors in, you can make a difference.
Just send our message out and we will deliver Labour councillors that will make a difference in Southend.
We've got a fantastic team of candidates, one of the strongest that I've ever seen in all my time in the party. So let's give those candidates our backing, let's get out there and win.